Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rechakodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I have a couple of headlines here as things continue to get interesting. First one here, I'm going to start, because this is on X, and then I'll transition to the others. But this is something that I think that we should also be keeping in mind and keeping an eye on. This is pertaining to Cuba, right? It says Cuba has infiltrated the highest reaches of the U.S. government, recruited and cultivated generations of American activists, and backed an unprecedented wave of left-wing terrorism on American soil, the U.S. State Department said. Now, I did an article not too long ago on how they were saying that you have basically like informants and agents and people that have been, quote, radicalized and placed in certain positions in here. In the case Cuba was to get attacked, they would basically rally, and then they would also do damage from within. Now, what I find interesting is that it is definitely not out the picture that a lot of these agents could have come in here while the whole border situation, right, under when Biden was there, and they were basically fighting against the Texas governor to basically keep it open, right, and just allow anybody all up into the country. Guess what? All those people that came up in there, you got a lot of them that are still in here that were able to blend in. Like, remember that if you are a trained agent, so yeah, if you're a trained agent, you know, your job, like you're really good at going and infiltrating a country and blending in. Like, they spend a good amount of time, you know, learning how to do that very well, to where you would never believe that it was the school bus driver, right, or the teacher or whatever, the principal, that was an agent or an informant, because they you know, that's what they do. So it's definitely interesting to keep our eyes on that as they're pushing, you know, claiming to crack down on terrorism and domestic teas and all of that. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they set up or try to set up some false situation as a pretense to go up in there into Cuba. But in any case, this is the next headline here, and this actually happened today, right? It says explosion reported outside 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan. New footage shows what appears to be a fire and a person being arrested outside 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan. Now, they said that they caught this suspect, and they also found some, like, you know, firearm kind of device. But it says here, moment of explosion that went off outside of the 26 Federal Plaza in NYC around 8:30 a.m. this morning, with immigration agents and FBI rushing out, guns drawn, and FPS apprehending the suspect. Sidewalk has been shut down and building evacuated. And it says, notably, the building houses several federal agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the FBI, the Social Security Administration, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So for somebody to go and, you know, do an attack like this, you know that they're gonna harp on that, right? And as they're just coming out more and more talking about, you know, potential homegrown teas and domestic teas, then you have situations like this happening. It's not by coincidence. In fact, yesterday I did a lesson as well on how the State Department issued a worldwide caution, right, because of the Iran war, that they're saying, like, you know, the adversaries of the U.S. could attack in different ways, and it's not just going to be by, you know, shooting missiles and drones at U.S. bases in the Gulf region, but they also have other means of attacking and doing damage as well. Speaking of which, that leads us into this other headline. Now, it says here, Iran's Houthi allies in Yemen declared maritime embargo against Saudi Arabia, and this is going to cause a lot more hurt. They threatened that they would do this, right? They said they had given instructions to the Houthis that if they kept getting attacked, that they should close the Bab-El-Mandeb Strait, and that's exactly what the Houthis they've declared to have done. It says Houthi militants in Yemen on Monday declared a maritime embargo against Saudi Arabia, effective immediately, threatening to exacerbate the oil supply disruption triggered by Iran's attacks on tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. This is interesting, right? This is from CNBC, so let's keep that in mind. But what's interesting here is the wording that they chose to use. They said here that this would exacerbate, meaning like it would make it worse, but it would make worse the oil supply disruption. The oil supply disruption that is triggered, right? That was triggered by Iran's attacks on tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. If we go back in time to a couple months ago, Iran didn't just up and close the Strait of Hormuz. They were bombed and attacked, and they said that they would close it if this is what's going to happen, if this is how it's going to go. And how did it go? Israel and the U.S. bombed the ass, right? And then in response to that, they closed the strait. So to say that it's, necessarily triggered by that, that's kind of like looking at the fifth domino to fall and say that was the triggering point. Well, it really started with the first domino, then the second and the third and the fourth, and then it hit the fifth. The fifth was just a series of reactions to, what happened before. But remember, this is all part of, you got to look at how they word these things, right? Because this isn't really covering the facts, if that's the case. If you really want to talk about the facts, it was triggered when they got bombed because they knew that Iran would do that. Now it says the Houthis have repeatedly threatened to close the Bab-El-Mandeb Strait during the U.S.-Iran war. The strait is a choke point for commercial ship traffic that connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and global markets. The problem with this is what Saudi Arabia started to do, which this article is going to say, is once the Strait of Hormuz, they realized they couldn't pass their oil through there, they started rerouting it the opposite way and to go through the Red Sea and then come out of the Bab-El-Mandeb Strait. If they close that off now, those little that cushion that was coming from Saudi Arabia rerouting the oil path, that's going to be blocked off. Okay, I'm going to jump down here. It says the Saudis have diverted millions of barrels of oil per day through a pipeline to an export terminal on the Red Sea. Those exports have acted as a crucial relief valve for global oil markets during the U.S.-Iran war. See? A closure of Bab-El-Mandeb would block in those barrels, I guess would put a block, exacerbating the disruption triggered by Iran's attacks on tankers in Hormuz. Crude oil prices, however, were little changed after the Houthis declared the embargo. Yeah, but don't worry, when they try to pass ships through there and they start getting bombed, those those prices are going to start going up. Okay, so things are continuing to escalate, not only overseas, but also inland. And that's why the scriptures say, like the Apostle Paul mentioned, to be circumspect. In fact, let me go there real quick. I believe that's in the book of Philippians. Where is it? I know I'm looking. There you go. Philippians 4. And hold on. You know what? Let me just search it. Circumspect. These. Ephesians, not Philippians, Ephesians. There we go. This is the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 15. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. Because a wise person is aware of their surroundings and they're constantly, alert. They don't just let their guard down. Especially knowing the times that we're living in. Right? It says, redeeming the time because the days are evil. See? And we can clearly see the days are very, very evil. We see the evils all around. So if you think that now is the time to live in a ignorance is bliss kind of state of mind, you're going to find yourself in a very, very bad predicament. You know, that's going to make things very difficult for you, especially in the times that we're in now. So I'm going to end it there. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. Continue to pray for fewer days. Pray that the Lord has mercy on us and our loved ones and delivers us out of this place. Because this is, you know, the world is just getting worse and worse and worse, right? Anyway, with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.